So I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my favorite fashion resources, like what I use to really understand fashion or what I had used in the past. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys books, magazines, websites, as well as documentary and movies. These are really helpful tools that I thought would be pretty beneficial. So we are going to be talking about some videos, so I definitely wanted to start with YouTube. A subscriber and friend, Viviana, was so kind to leave us with her fashion playlist full of fashion knowledge. So I definitely wanted to mention this first because there is so much information on YouTube and for free, you guys. So thank you, Viviana, for sharing this on my fashion books video. Really appreciate that. I took a look at it and it's so great. I definitely wanted to urge everyone to take a look at it as well because it can really be your one-stop shop. It's a really great place to start, and as you know, YouTube will then start recommending other similar videos for you as well. On her playlist, she has everything from the business of fashion, which I mentioned later in this video, also quick videos to help you break down the history of fashion as far as the 20th century goes. And it's a great starting point. And also there are videos with tons of interviews, which I always say to use these people as your mentor. If you can't get in touch with someone in the industry that you admire, just YouTube interviews that they've done and soak up their knowledge and experiences. So definitely YouTube is a great tool, and I love when people upload the runway shows as well because then you can see how the clothes and the fabrics and everything moves. So just search around and enter into the black hole that is YouTube. They even have documentaries, which I will talk about some of my favorites, and also you can watch movies on YouTube. So let's go ahead and talk about my favorite fashion movies that I think are super important to watch. So I'm just going to start with the ones from the past, so like the Audrey Hepburn films. These films really solidified Audrey Hepburn as a style icon, and it really gave us these closet essentials that I'm always talking about, these wardrobe essentials, shoe essentials, accessory essentials. So the movies to really pay attention to are Sabrina, Breakfast at Tiffany's, of course, and Funny Face. I mean, Roman Holiday as well. I'll admit I have not watched Roman Holiday, although I hear it's beautiful, so definitely if you guys want to give that one a watch as well, I don't see how it'll hurt. So a lot of these essentials, like I said, became really popular through these films like Funny Face. We got the cigarette pants, the ballet flat, the turtleneck, and then Breakfast at Tiffany's, the little black dress, so important. The Wayfarers and a trench coat. I feel like another great classic film is Mahogany. So Mahogany is with Diana Ross, and it's super fashion centric because her character is trying to be a designer, or she's a fashion designer. It is so amazing because it gives you all the glitz and 70s glam, so highly recommend watching that just to get an idea of like this 70s vibe. Another one that is super important, everybody always reference, is Annie Hall.
I love what you're wearing.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
And it is especially important because of what's going on right now in fashion with the androgynous kind of like menswear. I mentioned that trend in my autumn and winter 2017-2018 trend, the suit yourself, so that is very much Annie Hall. Annie Hall is literally the epitome of androgynous style. Like that is what people always think of. Like if you see a woman in menswear, it's like super Annie Hall. Another one that I think is really underrated, I don't know, I think, is Love Story. Ali McGraw is in that movie, and she is literally one of my favorite fashion icons. I always look to her for inspiration. So the movie is really like collegiate prep. Really at the time, I feel like it was like the poster child, if you can call it that, of American dressing. Like that is what people thought of as American style. So you can see how that translates through that movie, and you'll see again where current designers kind of draw inspiration from, because no one really likes to say where they copied things from, but once you start knowing, you'll be like, oh, isn't that super Love Story? So anyways, I think that one's a great one to watch as well. Sex and the City, of course, you can watch the movies, you can watch the TV show. I feel like they're constantly talking about different designers. The costume design is just so lavish and so fashion, so definitely had to call that one out as well. And I personally love the show better than the movies, but if you don't want to like sit through, you know, all the seasons or whatever, you can definitely just watch the movie, and it's even more over the top, I feel like, in the movie. That can get you really familiar with like certain designers and stuff. I'm gonna say Clueless because that is literally the movie that got me interested in fashion. I mean, it is such a fashion movie. It's a must watch for sure. If you haven't watched it, please do that like right now.
Says who?
Calvin Klein.
And then also The Fifth Element, I really like. Jean-Paul Gaultier, I hope I'm saying that right, God. These French words are killing me.
Jean-Paul is nice, no?
He designed some of the pieces, if not all, for that movie, so It's really, really interesting. I like watched the movie and then I learned after the fact that he designed it. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not realize that before? So it's pretty good. And I actually like the movie, so I get made fun of for liking that movie, but I love anything futuristic. So anyways, I think The Birds as well, that's one of my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies. Ugh, and you'll see like the costume design is so cool. And it was Edith Head, I believe, that was the costume designer. She's like legendary, so definitely one to like pay attention to, and you can, you know, study and learn and be inspired by different costume designers. One of my favorite costume designers as well is like Colleen Atwood. She works a lot with Tim Burton. It's just like, you know, that's her work, like that's her aesthetic, and it's really interesting to see how she's so creative and really helps develop these characters and give these characters such a personality through costume. So anything Colleen Atwood as well, I love. Also Casino, it was like based in Vegas, all these super, super glitzy, like, I mean, the wardrobe budget for that film was insane, so definitely worth watching. And also Blade Runner? Blade Runner is something that everybody references because it's so different. I was working with like Katy Perry's stylist and he was like, yeah, we're thinking something like super Blade Runner, and I had not seen that movie at the time and I was like, hold on, and I like had to Google everything. Googling and watching the film is just a different animal. Like, I feel like to really understand and like the movement of everything, better to watch the film. So I'm gonna say Blade Runner because that was one that constantly gets referenced. But yeah, definitely check out that book and see what you guys like because there are so many movies to get inspired by. But let's move on to documentaries. So documentaries always have such a special place in my heart. Documentaries, I feel like, really helps give you an inside look. Like, you can read a book and they're very descriptive and everything like that, but seeing them in action is just like more personal, obviously, so it really feels a little bit more tangible almost. And there are so many fashion documentaries. So the first one I would say is the September issue. It's basically Vogue preparing for their biggest issue of the year, the September issues. So you see all these people kind of doing their jobs throughout the movie and like the industry, different interviews, Anna Wintour giving her opinion, and you really get a good idea of like how it works in the editorial world. So super interesting if you guys want to dive into that world. Another one that is, I think, backed by Vogue is the first Monday in May, and that one was super interesting to me. It gave me more of an appreciation for fashion if I didn't already have enough, but more so because it is such an art. So that documentary is taking you through what it takes to really create the Met Ball, the Met Gala. Prior to watching this documentary, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like celebrities get dolled up. Like, I mean, they go to the nines. Like, that is really the time to be a little bit more avant-garde with your fashion. And, you know, they walk down with the designer who designed the dress for them. That's kind of all I really knew about the Met Ball. So this really gave you an inside look of what it takes and how much work it is. It was just like a newfound appreciation for how art and fashion collide. So the next documentary is Dior and I, and that is honestly my favorite documentary that I'm going to talk about today. Highly recommend watching it. I'm such a fan of Roth, and it's basically giving us a behind the scenes look at his first year as the creative director for Dior. It really gave me a newfound appreciation as well for couture and like all the hours and like hand sewn and like all the seamstresses and designers that are working together to like put on this fashion show, and like even from like this flower wall. Oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful and really like inside look. They did such an amazing job of like covering like the stress. One stole my heart. Another one to get a really good idea of like the fashion industry is Diana Vreeland. She was editor-in-chief at Vogue, and it's called The Eye Has to Travel. So it's really interesting to see her perspective on fashion as far as like styling shoots, and that kind of like revolutionized fashion. Another documentary that I think is super cute and so cool and very now and like bloggery is Bill Cunningham. It's like the street style photographer, and he's just so sweet. So definitely give that one a watch, and that's actually a documentary that we watched as part of like one of my fashion classes as well. Jeremy Scott is another one that I really loved. I think he's such a different kind of designer. Obviously he's super fun, cartoony. I love that. I'm like a kid at heart as well, so I feel like he's very much a kid at heart, and he uses a lot of like pop culture but does it in such a way, I don't know, it's super cool. I feel like some of the stuff is like super not wearable. It's like a certain aesthetic, like a certain type of person can pull that off. So even though it's not necessarily things that I'm wearing, I don't know, I love it. I love his mind, and he's so fun. So I like that documentary as well. And that's when I was actually introduced to Carlene I don't know how to say her name, I'll leave it here. But she's also mentioned in that stylist book. She's an incredible woman, my God. I think she's so cool and just so like badass, honestly. And she's in that documentary quite a bit, so it was just super inspirational. Like whenever I'm feeling unmotivated, I literally turn on one of these documentaries because it's people just realizing their dreams. So I feel like his story especially, like he's like from a small like farm town, and to be so celebrated and loved. Now he's like head of Moschino and stuff. I think that documentary is about his first year at Moschino, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've watched it, guys. I'm sorry, but it's so worth watching. And then also, I love the Mario Testino documentary. That one's super quick, but it gives you an inside look at his personal life. He's so celebrated for his photography, of course. Like he's worked Vogue and like all of these like crazy iconic images. I mean, he took Princess Diana's like most favorite photos. Kate Moss, like he has a whole book. Actually, I have it here. The Kate Moss by Mario Testino. I just really love him as a photographer, and he's from Peru, and I don't know, he just has like this liveliness about him, and it's really captured in this documentary. You can see how his personality shines through his photographs. He's like so like. And then also the other resources that you can use are of course the internet, websites. I'm so sad that style.com is no longer. That was literally my like Bible, if you want to call it that, because I loved the way the runway stuff was set up then. So now all of that runway stuff is at Vogue.com. So you can definitely go through all of the seasons, all of the collections, like the designers and stuff. They have an index per season, per designer, and you can click through and really study the runways and really know what the aesthetic is of that designer. And then when you are working in fashion, you'll know exactly what to get. Like as a stylist, if they're looking for something a bit more edgy and cool, like are you gonna go for Zimmerman that's like super girly and frilly? Like no, you know what I mean? Like you'll know exactly what designers you need to look to, what clothes you need to call from what designer. So it's super important. I think that's where I spent the most time when I was like in college, just studying style.com. Now you guys can go to Vogue.com. Another one just to kind of stay in the know of what's going on in the industry is Business of Fashion. I think you need to pay for that one. It's like a subscription. That's another one where I get all of my kind of news from, just so I know what's going on like in terms of textiles, like what new technology is out, what sustainable fabrics are out, which designer is now the new creative director of this house, or what clothing store is going bankrupt. It's like the fashion news of the world. WWD.com as well is another one. I get like the emails, and sometimes I don't read every article, but just reading the headline you kind of get an idea of like what is going on, because they use headlines to really like grab your attention. So I mean, you should read the article obviously, but I don't have time sometimes. So what I do actually is either get those alerts through email, or I'll just follow all these publications on Twitter. So I really use Twitter like as my news source, and I can just kind of click through and see like, oh, whatever headline captures my attention and I want to know a little bit more, I obviously go in and read everything about that. And it's not just like trends and stuff like that, but really like numbers and bankruptcies and lawsuits and everything like that. So I'll leave all those websites linked below as well, or in that blog post I should say. And then my last little resource is an obvious one, is fashion magazines. I honestly don't spend too much time with them anymore. I get W, I get InStyle, I like Marie Claire, I like Vogue, Teen Vogue. I really love Teen Vogue, but there's so many cool publications that you can take a look at. And I really love to look at other countries too. Like I'll go into Barnes & Noble or like one of those magazine stands, and they have things from France and Latin America, London. So I really like to see what is going on in other cities as well. I think that's pretty cool too, even though it costs you like 50 bucks. I feel like the more you read, the more you know, and there's never any harm in that. So read as many fashion magazines as you want. So I'm really glad I was able to sit down here and just talk about all of my favorite fashion resources with you guys. I really hope you guys found this informational and it was beneficial to your like learning in fashion, whatever path you're trying to take. I wish you guys honestly nothing but success and the best, and it's really an amazing space to be in. And it's so big and wide, so there's room for everybody. Or if you're just a fashion enthusiast and you just want to really know and like know how to trend forecast. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like if it was helpful for you, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye guys.